Hello Internet, welcome to the channel. My name's Frankie, and in today's video we're going to be building a bit of an exhibit house, somewhere for our guests to come and look at various reptiles and frogs and beetles and invertebrates, stuff like that. And we're also going to have a walkthrough exhibit right in the centre. Now this is going to be quite an ambitious project. I had an idea for it when I first started out. The idea was to have a walkthrough exhibit in the centre, and then you can go upstairs and there'll be windowed areas that will allow you to look at some neighbouring habitats that I'll be building in the next few videos. And it took a lot of chopping and changing in order to get the paths to work, because as we know, paths in this game are just a little bit finicky, and when you're building something that is 2 stories, just basically anything that's more than ground level, you're going to need to do the paths first and then build around it. I say that just because that is the easiest way to do it, at least in my experience. So what you see me doing is creating 2 platforms that are led to by stairs, and then joining them at the back, making sure to kind of go around the walkthrough exhibit, because I like the idea of being able to look down into it whilst you're looking out the windows to the neighbouring habitats and stuff. Now I'm laying out the pathing downstairs, starting to lay out where I want people to be able to walk around. We're going to have people being able to walk through the walkthrough exhibit, obviously, and then up either side of it we're going to have some normal exhibit boxes where we can have snakes and beetles and stuff, and just general exhibit animals, because I feel like I don't use them enough. It's something that I kind of neglect. I have so much fun making big, showy habitats that I rarely pay that much attention to the smaller animals in the game, which is quite unfortunate because they are also lovely. Frontier put a lot of work into making these animals look really good, so it's time that I show them a little bit of love as well. Once I'm happy with the layout of the paths and where the exhibits are going to go, I can start to create kind of a shell to this building. It's not going to be the final form, it's mainly just for me to get a better idea of what I'm looking at, because at the moment it doesn't make much sense at all. And to do that I'm going to use a few building pieces that I think will actually be used for the main build, and I'm going to use some of the dark wooden pieces from the New World theme. I'd also play about with some of the bamboo because we just got that with the South America pack and I think it looks amazing. I'm definitely going to be using that throughout this build as well, but for the time being we are using some of the dark wooden slat kind of pieces from the New World theme, and I'm literally just running it around the perimeter of the building, making sure that I know what the footprint of this building is and what general kind of shape it's going to take up. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you may know that I don't overly enjoy making human based kind of structures. This is very much for the people, this one, and I'm not very fond of building like that. So this is kind of pushing my boundaries a little bit, and as I started to build, there's just something about this upstairs area that doesn't look right. I play about with it loads, do loads of different things with it, but ultimately I'm going to complete downstairs basically, and then I kind of decide to just scrap it and make it a 1-story thing, some of it's just ground level, and I think that works a lot better. Reason being is I'm not overcomplicating things, so instantly it's easier to deal with on a building level. But also it just looks nicer. I do not like how it looks. It was just a bit too ambitious, and as I don't have too much experience making buildings like this, I potentially shouldn't dive so hard into it and start out with something a bit more simple if I'm going to start experimenting with floors and stuff. So instead we're going to focus on the downstairs right now and what I want it to kind of look like. As you can see, I'm starting to use the bamboo already to mask the stairwell and all that. But I'm not going to go into too much depth with this because ultimately it's all wasted. So I'm going to cut out a bit of footage now and we'll move on to some of the more permanent things that we do downstairs. Now I knew pretty much straight away when I started this build that I wanted the walkthrough exhibit to be for the sloths. We haven't used them in game yet, and I think they're a wonderful creature and feel kind of appropriate for primate isles. What you see me doing there is measuring some bamboo against some of the humans in the game because I want them to be an appropriate height. I'm going to use these as a barrier from the main path where you'll be looking at your exhibits, and then you'll be able to see into the sloth habitat as well. And we're still going to be able to walk through the middle of it, but I want there to be kind of an open air feel to it, as if though you could just step over the barrier and walk in, which you definitely could, But the idea is that you're going to have this bamboo in the way, and there's going to be some glass running through it as well to try and stop you from doing that. Not only for your safety, but also the animals. We don't want them being able to easily climb out. So that is kind of just a precaution for them. I often like to do this with my exhibits where I will use the basic shape of the exhibit, but potentially expand it and then decorate it like crazy. This is going to be like an indoor jungle. This is a proper tropical house which I'm building. So these are kind of to contain that area as well, to make sure we haven't got any of the plants spilling over onto the path and stuff. So yeah, I think it's a really nice building piece, this bamboo wall. I really like the different heights and stuff. It feels very, I don't know, it feels organic. Obviously it's man-made, but it does feel organic. Yeah, I really like the finish on these bamboo walls, and I'm pretty happy to get to include them in this house. As for the glass that's going to be running through the bamboo, there were a few different ways to approach it, and I end up going for some just plain glass panels from the building tab. There were a few different decorative ones, but I decided to just go with the plain ones in the end. I did try to use the glass barrier in the barrier tab. However, you can't place a barrier this close to a path. In fact, it kind of goes on the path, so I was never going to allow it. So instead we just use these modern glass wall panels, sink them down so that they're kind of the same height as the tallest piece of bamboo, and then just run them along the length of our bamboo wall. And then once I'm done with this, I can copy and paste the whole selection. I can select all of these bamboo pieces along with the glass, copy and paste them over to the opposite side of the building, and we've got the exact same barrier over there, and it's nice and easy. Now I can pop in our sloth and make sure that we don't have a mesh or glass kind of perimeter, make sure that there's no perimeter whatsoever, and change the path to a dirt path. Annoyingly, the ground coverage underneath the bamboo platforms and stuff is a type of dirt that I can't quite match in the terrain editor tab, which is really annoying, but I'm going to get as close as I can really in terms of value and whatnot, and then I'm going to run some sand down that center path where the humans are going to be walking, and it doesn't look great, does it? But what I'm going to do is, when it comes to placing plants and stuff, we're going to concentrate on kind of blending the two different terrain textures, making sure that they don't stand apart too clearly. And we kind of don't want there to be any ground visible anyway. We're going to really plaster this area with plants. I'm also going to move those bamboo barriers that I made over like a minute ago. I'm going to move them over to create a barrier to the path in the center of this habitat, so that the humans don't go wandering off to try and cuddle the sloth. We don't want that. We do not want that at all. The closest we want a sloth to get is climbing over the climbing those poles that go over the top of the path. That is fine, but we don't want them to be hugging our guests. That is not good for the animals. Now we're starting to add all of the other exhibit animals, and I should have written down which animals I put in here. I cannot remember, so I'm going to try and tell you off the top of my head what is in here. We have the Gila monster, the sacred scarab beetle, the titan beetle, the red-eyed treed frog, the red-eyed tree frog, and okay, that's half. We have another few. We have two types of snake. I believe we have three types of snake. We have the rattlesnake, can't remember the specific type. The yellow, is it yellow anaconda? Oh, it's on screen now. Yes, yellow anaconda. And what's the other snake? The puff adder. And then there is a 8th animal that is escaping my brain right now. Trying to think. I really want to remember this without having to look through the footage to find out what it was, but I'm not sure it's going to arrive, so I might have to. I'll get back to that, because right now what you're seeing me doing is using some of the wooden pieces that you'd normally use at the front of a shop that would allow for the window that you can have the you can see into the shops, and our guests can go up and buy their hot dogs and stuff. And it is a lovely shape to cover up the glass of the exhibit and make it feel more like the kind of exhibit you'd see in a zoo, because you never see exhibits of this size. These things are massive. Normally when you're at a zoo, you will see tiny little windows into glass containers where the animals are living, and that is the kind of thing that I'm replicating here. Now you could create your own by using custom building pieces and stuff and lining them up correctly, but this is a really easy way to do it just by using the shop front building pieces. You cover the glass in a really nice uniform way. It makes it look nice and sleek and kind of professional. So it's a good way round, I think. Brazilian wandering spider. I think that's what it is, the last of the exhibit animals. I just remembered it's a massive spider. Yeah, not a fan of spiders, but we need to include them. Now, after placing those window frames on, the walls do look a little bit bare. I do like this sleek kind of look to it, but it does look a little bit empty. So what I'm going to be doing is adding some signage in the shape of little TV screens. I'm going to use a larger central one, which we can use to show the education board for the sloth. You can't use a normal education board for this because the exhibit animals don't appear on there, so they have to act as adverts instead, which is completely fine. Then I'm going to use a bunch of the smaller ones and put them either side of each of the exhibit windows to show what animal is in there. Unfortunately, on consoles we cannot use custom signs, and that it does suck, but we can work our way around by using small TV screens and stuff. We can make the most of the signs that are in game and make sure we use them to our advantage. Another way to ensure that the walls aren't looking so empty is to use some conservation education boards. Not only is this going to fill up space and add a bit of interest to your walls, but it's also going to boost the education score of the entire zoo. Having these plotted about your zoo is an excellent way to boost the education score. If you're struggling with it, I would always suggest finding a place for these boards to go. It really does help. Now we get to move on to what is easily the most fun part of this build, and that is to plaster that sloth habitat with loads and loads of plants. Like I said earlier, we want to make sure the ground is completely covered to ensure we don't see the line where the exhibit floor turns into the natural floor. We want to cover that and make it look quite like a smooth transition. So I go onto the Zoopedia page for the brown-toed sloth. Brown-throated, what am I talking about? And we can see that it's from South America and it lives in the tropics. So we're going to use the filters that fit that and just cover this in plants. Now I'm going to take a step back, go quiet for a minute, and allow you to enjoy the time lapse of me putting loads of plants everywhere, and we'll get a little fact about the sloth from Floki as well. Once I was done with adding all the foliage to this area, I used something that I haven't actually used in this game before, and that is the ambient speakers. When I think of these kind of tropical houses in zoos from which I've visited, there's always a lot of noise going on, and it really does make you feel like you're in the jungle or the tropical forests of South America. So I'm going to use some of the ambient speakers and make sure that they are set to the tropics of South America, and it's just going to allow for a very immersive experience when you as a guest are wandering around this house, looking at all of the exhibit animals and stuff, and walking through this luscious jungle that appears to be here for the sloths. It's going to make you feel like you're really there, and I think it's a nice touch. Something else I want to make sure of is that we have a few educational talks in this tropics house. Now, as we have, I think, 9 species. Yeah, we've got 8 exhibit animals plus 1 walkthrough exhibit animal. As we've got 9 species in this place, we're going to have it be its own work zone, so that we have a zookeeper that is dedicated to this area, and we're also going to have an educator dedicated to this area as well. We're going to have a few of the animal talks, one being in the sloth habitat, the walkthrough bit, and then we're going to have a few for some of the animals outside as well. We're just going to sink the talk points into the wall, as he always stands in front of that little speaker, meaning that he will be on the path whilst the actual speaker thing will be hidden, because it's kind of, it gets in the way if you just put it on the side of your path, so sinking it into the wall really helps. We're going to make sure that at least one of the animals that he does a talk on is going to be small enough that he can take out and do a bit of handling with it, because that's just an extra level, just an extra layer of immersiveness for these guests. Being able to see him carrying the Titan beetle and showing it off in his hands is just something a bit different, isn't it? So we're going to make sure that we have one of the animals, and it is the Titan beetle, that he can pick up and show off. It was at this point in the build that I came to the realization that this is going to work better as a single story ground floor building. So what I'm going to do is delete all of the stuff that I've built upstairs. It's not very much, but figuring out that path took quite a bit. So it is kind of a big deal to be deleting it. It felt like it kind of sucked deleting this. And also the stairs, because I made quite a nice bamboo casing, I guess, to the stairs, and I now have to get rid of that and just make everything else work in order to kind of make it seem as if though that gap does not exist. So deleting the stairs and the bamboo, and then changing it for some bamboo walls, well, at least wall paneling. We're going to have the nice dark wooden wall pieces in the middle, and then we're going to have some bamboo pieces at the top and bottom to kind of cap it off and tie in the bamboo theme that we've got for some of this build. I really like these bamboo building pieces, and I just think they're very charming, and I don't know, they add a lot of character, so I'm really happy that we've got them. And now that I know that we're not going to be going upstairs, and that what we have currently built at the moment is kind of it in terms of the interior, I can decorate it a little bit more. I'm not going to go crazy, but on the walls near the entrance I'm going to place a couple signs. One of them is just going to be a planet because I think it looks cool, and then on the other wall we're going to have a couple tree frogs. We're going to have them mirroring each other. It looks like they're kind of climbing up the wall, which is super cute, and it kind of hints at what is inside this habitat, this exhibit house as well. I also haven't done a full, haven't really had a look at the South America building pieces yet. Not really. I've played about with these bamboo pieces just because they came up when I filtered things by wood, and whilst I'm in love with those, I haven't really looked at what else that pack has to offer. I have seen the capuchin monkey signs, which I'm pretty happy about, so I'll have to have a proper look through soon and see what kind of stuff we can use in some of the future builds. Also going to pop a couple sloth signs near the entrance to the sloth walkthrough exhibit, because that just... Now it's time for the exterior of this building, and I'm gonna be honest, this is where I struggle the most when it comes to building for humans. I just don't get how to make a nice looking building. So what I did was I looked up a few reference images for reptile houses and stuff, and I just very loosely based this on the door shape of the London Zoo reptile house, which has changed. It's not the same as it used to be. It's kind of got pillars that run up either side of the door, then there's a little gable above the door, and the walls either side are slightly lower. It just it looks nice, it's simple and effective, and that is exactly what I'm going to go for with this. I'm going to keep it really simple because, like I said, I haven't done much of this type of building, so when I'm trying to do something new, it's a good idea to try and do a simpler version of it, because I feel like you're going to learn a bit more because you're not overwhelming yourself necessarily. So I'm going to use some wooden pieces, just some wooden beams from, I think they're from the base game, and create some kind of textured pillars either side of the door. And we're just going to copy and paste them to create this kind of shape that we want. It's kind of like a semicircle, but it's obviously made out of rectangles, so it's not going to be smooth or anything. Yeah, I like how this looks. We're going to use a couple of those either side of the door, then create a triangle above the door using these wooden beams as well. Fill it with bamboo pieces and just create kind of a little gable above the front door. Before going any further with the exterior design, I thought it would be a bit more useful to put our roof on, because then I get a sense of what the general shape of this building is going to be. And there was a bit of experimentation here. I wasn't sure if should be using some of the double pitches or these single pitch roofs and stuff. It was literally just a matter of playing about and seeing what works, and in the end I decided to go for the vertical wooden slats. I think this is from the aquatic pack, I'm not 100% sure. It's a really nice wooden roof piece. I use it quite a lot in my builds, and I'm just going to run the perimeter of this building using these and leave the center piece empty. Above the sloth habitat, I want to create kind of a greenhouse feeling, so I'm going to be covering that with glass pieces, glass building pieces, to make sure that we have a lovely open area above it. And when I say open, I do actually mean open. We're going to leave a few little air holes so that we have fresh air in this building all the time, and that rain can fall down and irrigate our plants and stuff in a natural way. It's going to reduce the workload of our keepers. I know that actually won't in game, but you know, if we're thinking about the welfare of our keepers in real life, this would help them because they wouldn't be having to manually water the plants all the time. And it's also going to allow for some natural sunlight and all that for the plants as well, allowing for such a tropical feeling down there. It's also going to heat up the building a lot, which is essential for having a tropical house. We need to have that glass roof to really help to just warm it up a bunch. And after having used a bunch of glass to create the roof, I decided to add a few windows to this building as well. Not only is it going to allow more light inside, but it also makes the walls that don't have things on them a lot more interesting without me having to think of fancy ways to make it look good. It's just a really easy way to make the outside of this building look a little bit more dynamic. I'm also going to add some of the wooden beams to the corners of the building because of how I built it on the outside of the squares on the grid. It does mean that there is a gap on either corner of this building, so we're going to use some of the wooden beams to kind of just mask that and make sure that the building doesn't look too incomplete. Now for some finishing touches to the outside of this building, I'm going to use a couple of the wooden lizard signs from the Australian pack because they're perfect for this kind of tropical house. And I'm also going to use some of the wooden slat pieces that we get from the conservation pack. They are, I'm not entirely sure what the purpose is for things like this on a building. I think it's got something to do with temperature regulation. But regardless, it's a really nice decoration. It is so simple and really effective. It just adds an extra point of interest to the wall. So I'm literally going to put these above the windows at the front of the building, and it just makes it look a little bit more complete and a little bit more professional. So that is a nice easy way to make the outside of this building look a little bit more finished. At the back of this building we do have a fairly empty hallway, and I'm going to use some big TV screens, the 4-meter ones, to kind of advertise two of the habitats that we have in this zoo that contain our biggest primates, and that is of course the Bornean orangutan and the Western lowland gorilla. I think it's important to be bringing attention to the animals that are kind of making this zoo what it is. This is of course Primate Isles. We are all about the conservation and re-releasing of primates of all types, whether that be little monkeys or the great apes. So I really want to be drawing attention to those where we can. When it comes to decorating outside of this building, I'm not doing anything too different to how I normally do it. We're going to use a few rocky outcrops and a bunch of plants and use some statues as well to draw attention to this area. I haven't played too much of the career mode of this game since it launched. I did maybe the first 8 levels, I guess, and it turns out the one that I stopped on was the one that would unlock the snake statue. So I paused the game before doing this building that you see right now and go and play that career level to at least the first star so that I unlock that snake statue, just so I can place them on the rocks outside of this building, because I think they're really appropriate. And I didn't realise that I would also unlock a statue of a macaque, which is also good because we're going to need that at some point for this zoo as well. So those are the 2 statues that we're going to be using on these stones. And yeah, I'm going to leave you now, I think, to just enjoy the rest of this plant bonanza. Thank you so much for having watched this video. I really enjoyed doing this build. It was a bit more of an ambitious one, but it's also going to have quite a big impact on the zoo in general. So I'm really happy with it. Thank you for watching, and until next time, I will see you later.